I'm going to tie a Biot Parachute, and I'm starting with a Green Caddis Outfitters 80,000 dry fly hook in a size 14, and the thread that I'm going to use is an 8/0 rusty dun. I'll start this behind the eye of the hook and then remove that tag, and then I'll bring my thread to where I want my post to start. And the post material that I'll use is an Antron yarn in white, and you can make this a high vis if you want to use a pink or a louder color. And I'm going to bend that material over my thread and situate it where I want it to be, and then take some wraps in the front and behind, and then I can begin to build my post. So a couple wraps at the base, and then I'll anchor it, and then each time I go up the post I'll go a little further and work my way back down, and again anchor it to the hook shank. The things to consider when building your post is the type of material that you're going to use around it and how heavily hackled you want it to be, and that'll dictate how high up you want to go. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to make a rough trim, give myself enough material to work with, but trim off the excess. Now I'll put a drop of head cement on that post to make sure that it stiffens up, and it'll be nice and rigid there for the hackle when I add it. So for the tail, I'm going to make this all in the grizzly color scheme. So I've got a grizzly hackle. This is from my scrap bin. It's a little bit oversized obviously for this, so I'll take off a pinch of fibers for the tail, and I'll measure it out roughly to be a hook shank in length, and then I'll tie that in down to the barb. I'll try to roll the material over the hook to get good separation of the tail fibers, and if I'm not pleased with it, I'll take a wrap underneath, and you'll see how that spreads them out a little bit better. I'll come back and trim up that excess. Now I can tie in my biot. I'm going to use a natural goose biot, so this isn't dyed. It'll look black on the outside, but when you open it up it'll have kind of that gray. So I'll take off the biot, and I'm going to tie it in tip first. And down to my tail, and then I'll bring my thread back up and leave it behind that post. Now I can attach my hackle pliers and take some even wraps up through and that'll provide for some nice body segments. And I'll tie that off and remove the tag, and then wrap that down. Now I can tie in my thorax. So I'll start by taking a small pinch, and I'll dub the first half of this to the post underneath and then slightly beyond, and then I can tie in my hackle. So I'll take at a bit of an angle here to make sure that I am able to get underneath where I tied in the post, and then I'll leave that just in front where I can tie in my hackle for the post. And again, I'll use a grizzly hackle for this. I'll strip back some of the pieces at the bottom, which will leave a nice stem for me to tie in. I'm going to tie that in to the front, and I'll wrap it back all the way to the post, and then I'll dub over that. And again, take back at an angle to make sure I've captured, or covered over rather, any of that bottom portion. So now I can start to wrap my hackle up the post. So again, I'll attach my hackle pliers, and I'll start to take my wraps, and again, as many wraps as you need to achieve the look you're going for. And then I'll cut these hackles underneath until I think I have enough to remove it from the stem. I'll rotate my vise slightly and then just come over here and snip it. And now I can hold this material back, and if I catch a few, that's okay, but I want to build out slight thread head and make sure that everything is captured, and then I can whip finish. Again, I want to try to whip finish underneath so I can hold this back as I do, and then pull down, and then remove the thread. And also, if you caught any of these fibers, come back through and clip them. Now, one of the reasons I like to use the Antron yarn is because it gives you some options when you get to this point. If you find that your hackle has slipped up the post at all, you can just separate that and it'll push it back down, and it's, you know, an easy material to work with. So at this point, I'm going to trim my hackle to size, or trim my post to size, and I'll sneak through with a drop of head cement underneath. And that is a Biot Parachute.